Talking Music with Big Andy. In this episode, Ghostfire, a Talking Music with me, Big Andy. Hello, welcome to the podcast. I have with me two of the members of Ghostfire. Hopefully, they'll all join us. Hi, how you doing?
Hey.
Hello.
Hello. Now, you are a steampunk band, I believe, but I don't know if you're always happy with that title. From what I was reading, you weren't a steampunk band when you started.
No, we weren't. We were just lucky to sort of coincide when we started gigging with the sort of start of the steampunk scene.
Yeah.
And it was one of the drummers. It was one of his friends actually. He came to see us a few times, and he's a journalist, and he obviously had some interest in that scene. And he caught something mainly within the lyrics, I think, because they had quite a historical sort of bent to them at the time. Yeah. He caught something in the lyrics that he thought would sort of mesh quite well with steampunk. So he suggested that we approach, some of the steampunk forums and stuff, which we did, and they liked it. And just on the basis of that, really, we were on board.
Yeah. No, it's interesting actually, because I'd never heard of. I'd heard of steampunk. I'd heard of it in books. I'd heard of it in cosplay and films and gaming and that kind of thing. But I never realised there was any kind of music scene around it at all. And then within the space of about 2 weeks, I heard your track, "The Last Steampunk Waltz," and I heard a track by another band called the New Jacobin Club.
Yeah.
Who were also like steampunk, and it was kind of like, hang on a minute, where have I missed out on this? Where has this suddenly appeared from?
I mean, steampunk started as like a literary genre. I think it was the J.W. Jeter, the author.
Yeah.
One of my favourite writers, actually, is a guy called Tim Powers. He's a novelist, but he's sort of strongly associated with steampunk. So, if he is sort of, I never sort of caught the references myself, but if that's the case, then I've been into steampunk since I was about 20 when I first started reading his stuff.
Fair enough.
But yeah, it was like, a primarily literary genre, which then sort of, spread out into sort of other areas. And music was really the last thing, I think, to come on board.
Yeah.
So it's impossible to define a steampunk band because there is no defined steampunk sound.
I was going to say, because your stuff doesn't sound the same as the New Jacobin Club. And the other bands I've come across are bands like The Men Will Not Be Blamed for Nothing, who really they're kind of, no, I hate to say, a friend of mine described them as the Chas and Dave of steampunk.
There's a bit more to them than that. They have a comic element to what they do, but it's very, very clever stuff.
It is very clever. I do.
Chas and Dave are really clever as well. You
absolutely
can't take that away from them.
No. So you were formed in 2007, apparently, and then you broke up in 2015, and then reformed in 2021.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. We started around 2007 with me and Al, and Steve was a singer. And Steve then a couple of years later went to live in Spain. So Ghostfire sort of carried on, went through a few incarnations, sort of different lineups, and retired it pretty much in 2015, I think. Right. And then last year, sort of January last year, in the middle of the second lockdown, we sort of reconnected. And some of it was inspired by the Weller Man. Do you remember the Weller Man that went viral on TikTok during? Yeah, because there was always a shantyish feel to what we did anyway. So we all got a bit sort of revved up by that. Or me and Al certainly did. And Al said, like, now that now that we're in sort of, the 21st century, we've all got recording facilities at home. The internet is so much better than it used to be. We can do all this stuff remotely. And then we asked Steve back on board because obviously, he was our first and our greatest singer. He was happy to like come back. And we've managed to sort of get the whole band up and running sort of almost virtually. Yeah, because we are quite spread out geographically, but it works now with the technologies that we got. It works.
Cool. So you're still in Spain, Steve? Yeah.
Yeah, I am. I'm still here.
Whereabouts in Spain are you?
In Andalusia.
Okay. Yeah. It must be interesting trying to get everything together over that sort of distance, even with Zoom and with the internet, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's some works. I mean, obviously we're not gigging or anything, but yeah, it's kind of like a way. I think many bands have kind of just adapted with the COVID situation and things.
Yeah.
They've just learned to kind of think, oh, well, there's another way of working, another way of rehearsing. I know some people have done that. But yeah, it works. It was really good to be working with Andy and Al again and things.
And also, I mean, Steve, because he would never say this himself because he's far too modest, but in the sort of interim period, he has just become a total whiz on computers and IT and videos and particularly recording software. So he's our sort of go-to man when there's any problems, because he knows, he's just got so much more experience than we have with that sort of thing. But yeah, it all works. I mean, there have been hiccups. We had some big hiccups with our last single, and that was just a software-based thing. But when it goes wrong, it can go very frustratingly wrong. Yeah. I think Al does most of our mixing, and then Steve does the mastering. And the two of them, I'm surprised they've got any hair left. Well, actually hasn't got any hair left. But it was just such a convoluted and frustrating thing, just because of one little setting that got used, which obviously will never be touched again. But yeah, so, I mean, it's great. Technology is great. It's always great until it isn't.
Yeah. Well, it's this thing though. You learn from those mistakes, that you learn what not to do next time.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So since you came back in 2021, you've had a few singles out since then.
Yeah, well, we managed four. We squeaked our Christmas single in about the 28th of December. Yeah, so between July and December, yeah, we had four singles out.
4 singles, yeah. I mean, I really like the Christmas one, "The Feast of Yule," it's a very good song. I really like that. I really like the first one, "5 Points West of Hell." That's a really good song. I really kind of got into that. It's interesting because when I was looking at the thing about what sort of music you play, it's obviously said steampunk, and then it said it contains elements of folk, spaghetti western, sea shanty, and Americana.
Yeah. That's the great thing about steampunk, is that you can play literally anything you want, and if you're accepted as a steampunk band by the community, then you're a steampunk band.
Yeah,
it really doesn't matter what you play. If they see something in it that appeals to them, then that's it.
Yeah.
And to be honest, that's what we always were. It's not something that we never jumped on the bandwagon.
No.
That's what we always were, and to a degree we still are. I mean, I'm still influenced by the same sorts of music now as I was like 10, 12 years ago.
Well, I was going to say, what sort of people influence you as musicians? What sort of music made you want to start doing this and made you influence the way you write? And
well, my background is punk. I mean, I started out playing in punk bands, then sort of transitioned through some sort of indie type stuff in the 90s. And then I don't know. I mean, again, like a lot of people, you sort of get out of music for a while, as you sort of, you know, mature, and then you get back into it again. And I did, and I just wanted to play in a band again, you know.
Yeah.
I was quite inspired at the time by a Finnish band called His Infernal Majesty. I was really into them, and I liked the sound, and I wanted to sort of try and put together a band that sort of tried to sort of capture that same sort of vibe, which we didn't at all. But I think we came up with something unique and actually in a way better, as so often happens. You know, Guns N' Roses set out trying to sort of emulate Aerosmith and just became something so much more. So it happens, you know. Yeah.
What about you, Steve? What were your influences?
Oh yeah, I think it depends what kind of mood I'm in. I love you know, things like Velvet Underground, Joy Division, and there's so many so many things that I always just forget right now. You know, I love kind of soundtrack music and basically music you can just kind of immerse yourself in. So, you know, I love music like The Fall and things, you know.
Yeah. It's interesting.
There's also some crossover, because I think we both quite like Leonard Cohen, Tom Waits, Johnny Cash.
Oh yeah, Leonard Cohen as
well.
Legend spoke, never fails. Every deed is hard as nails. She never speaks, she never smiles. The journey's end of 1,000 miles. Rings on her fingers and bells on her toes. Music to haunt her, she knows as she goes. Many years of better rock, too many turns on the season's clock. She never smiles, she never speaks. Awful silence goes running deep. Ghost light and candlelight show her the way. On with the dawn of the day, as they say. Stay with her, lay with her, carry her high. Swear allegiance to things you can't hide. She will find us again. She will find us again. Lives won't blind us again. Heaven bows to her ray once again.
There's a lot of atmosphere to your music. That's one of the things I liked about it, is the fact that it's funny because I do another podcast about films and filmmaking, and there's a lot of your songs that are very cinematic. The atmosphere of them lend themselves to imagery that, you know, you get in your head as soon as you start listening to them, and I really like that atmosphere thing, and I could see some of them fitting in really well with different sort of maybe horror or thriller films and that kind of thing. So that's one of the things that really kind of drew me into your music.
I think a lot of that comes out of one of my absolute heroes is Ennio Morricone.
All right.
He does the, you know, did the spaghetti westerns and a lot more besides. and I love that sort of music. So while I never sort of go out of my way to try and sort of emulate, I think you can't help but sort of take on board the stuff that you like.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I myself have described our music as cinematic, because that's when I'm writing songs, I have a vision in my head, and sometimes it's quite a widescreen sort of panoramic vision. So it's nice to hear that the music is sort of following that sort of visual side of it.
And it's interesting because there are tracks. I mean, there are tracks I've listened to that do kind of have that. You do kind of have this sort of this image of a big picture, if you like. But there are other ones like your older stuff, like the things like the last Steampunk Waltz, or the other tracks that are on the Tyburn Jig album, which kind of like, as soon as I started listening to them, I could see old Hammer horror sort of cobbled streets and a bit of fog and that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of my area of interest in history is very much sort of 17th century, like Civil War, Charles II, that sort of thing. Right. And also, I'm very interested in criminal history. So yeah, like Newgate Prison, all that. So yeah, I think some of those interests are just sort of naturally coming out through the lyrics and the songwriting.
Yeah. No, but they're really good. It's an interesting element to the music, and I think that's one of the things that kind of probably fits in with the steampunk sort of thing quite well. Was that historical element?
To be honest, I think that's what our journalist friend heard. Like it was the lyrics more than anything else. He thought the lyrics would fit because they did have that historic. And obviously steampunk is more sort of Victoriana, I think, but that's more the British side of steampunk. I think the American side of steampunk is a bit more embracing. I can say it's more of a sort of fantasy element, I think, which you don't get quite as much on the UK side.
It does seem to have a wider sort of scope to it in America than it does over here. Over here, it is very much Victoriana and kind of thing. Which is not something we ever set out to do, because like Victoriana was not really my area of historical interest. My area is much earlier than that. Yeah. But it worked, it worked, it fit, and it works. So yeah. As I say, I mean, there is that thing, as I say, that imagery of those sort of dark cobbled streets with like the carriages going down there with fog in the background and that kind of thing. Yeah. It works really well.
Oh, thank you.
Stay away from that forsaken place. Do not seek it, look upon its face. Cold men's plunder, cold men's coin, a cursed group you'd never wish to join. Don't unfold the rotting yellow map. From its path there is no turning back. Reach for the bottle, stow away the fear. It whispers softly, come and join us here. Sail away before the darkness falls. Sail away when phantom voices call. Sail away when river hands reaches down the bell. The compass says we're 5 points west of hell.
So from here on, I mean, at the moment you've been doing everything virtually and you've been putting out singles and that kind of thing. Is there going to be an album coming, another album at all?
Yeah, I think that will be our next release, will be an album. We can't give dates because we don't want to sort of set a target and then miss it. So yeah, but we do have a lot of songs written. Like I got a lot of songs written last year during the lockdown. So we got no shortage of material to be working with. And it is a case of like the more tedious side of it, I suppose, is like the mixing and the mastering.
Yeah.
Which luckily I don't have to do. I leave it to the other guys. Yeah, so yeah, definitely the next release will be an album, but we can't. It will be this year, but we can't sort of tell you any more than that, I'm afraid.
No, that's fine. That's great. And is there any chance at all of there being any live shows or any?
We did have a discussion about it in the week, and we decided it would just be too expensive.
Yeah.
Because there's just the three of us. We'd have to find other musicians. We'd have to fly Steve in from Spain.
By helicopter.
Yes. Give him the rock star treatment he expects.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be so much time and expense. I just don't think any, however well the gig paid, I don't think it would even begin to cover the expense.
No.
So
It would be nice to, if it ever were to happen, it'd be nice to kind of do a gig with Alan and Andy again and as well.
It's, I mean, I can see, I mean, your stuff would lend itself quite well, I think, to festivals and things like that, because it has that kind of more theatrical sort of sound to it, which fits well on a large stage. I don't know, maybe in the summer you'll be asked to do big gig at Glastonbury or something.
I think if a promoter came to us and said, like, here's 10 grand to get yourself ready and then you can tour America, I think then we would say yes. Or if it was a string of festival dates, but one-off gigs are just not going to work because we're not an up and running.
Unless it's Glastonbury, obviously.
Yeah. If you get a phone call saying we want you to play Glastonbury, I think anybody would.
Yeah. Like, oh, go on then.
Yeah, I mean, never
I
say
think
never.
it's like, with the gigs. I mean, it's something. When I was in the UK, I enjoyed because they were so dramatic and intense. It was just a really, in many ways, it was no different than the way that we rehearsed was kind of the same intensity and the same energy that we had when we did a gig. It was just the difference was that there was an audience at a gig, but it was very good, very exhausting by the time we finished, but really worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in bands myself, and I mean, gigs can be a lot of work and for very little return. But I don't know. I mean, it's. I think sometimes it's difficult. I think nowadays it maybe isn't something that's as important for a band as it used to be, because you can reach so many people via the internet, and because you can even do live streaming, even if you're in different countries, you can do live streaming things and that kind of thing. I think that the actual playing live process is not as desperately important to a lot of bands as it used to be.
I think a lot of like, we weren't even a band when the lockdowns happened initially, but I think a lot of gigging touring bands in that time, they found other ways. They found other ways to do it live. They found other ways to to try and keep some revenue coming in. And then you've also got, you've got the added sort of hurdle, certainly in sort of around London where we used to play, that so many venues are gone now. Either been shut down and developed, or they sort of had to close their doors forever during the pandemic. And it's just a dwindling circuit, like compared to what it was even when we started out like 12 years ago.
Yeah, and you're also going to have the added problem, which a couple of people have said to me, which is that when they've tried to get out there and do gigs, because of the fact that things have changed so much with Brexit, it's so difficult for bands to play in Europe now that a lot more of them are playing over here. So the bands that were quite often out of the country playing Europe are now looking to do gigs over here. So it's harder for the bands that have been playing here to get the gigs in the places they used to go.
I mean, I can't even, can't even countenance like playing in Europe now. It just sounds like an absolute nightmare of paperwork.
I can do it.
I mean, I played, you know, when I was back in the punk bands, we used to gig around Europe quite a lot, and it wasn't, you know, and it was easy. It was easy back then. Now, oh my God, now it's just be a nightmare. I think a lot of bands just take one look at all that and think, no, it's too complicated. It's too expensive.
I know some guys who used to be in a back in the new wave of British heavy metal.
Oh, yeah.
They were in a band, and they basically what they used to do was every sort of like month or so, they would pile themselves into a van, go over to France on a ferry, and then just drive around and try and find gigs. And they would play gigs in France all over the place, just sort of driving around and phoning people up or whatever and saying, have you got a spot this week?
Yeah, well, if you've got the connections, you can do that, I think. Yeah.
Now, I don't think you could do it that way now. I think it's just...
I mean, I don't think, you know, the band I was in, we had, you know, all the tours were sort of set up for us by connections out there. We couldn't have done that. We just didn't, you know, we didn't have the network in place. But if you have, particularly on the sort of squat scene in Germany, you know, that's a really vibrant scene, or it was. I don't know what it's like now. Yeah, and if you can tap into that, then you have kind of got a ready-made tour.
That's the thing. I mean, the thing was for them, because they were heavy metal, they were involved in a couple of with doing gigs for bikers and things over here.
Yeah.
So they kind of got connections through that. So
yeah.
I'm not sure nowadays.
Never say never. I mean, you know, at the minute we're not looking to gig, but you just don't know what's around the corner. You don't know what, if the right offer came in, then yes, we would, like a shot.
Yeah. I can see that.
It's not the wind in the sails, he is come now. His jacket is darkened. Can you hear him? He mutters, whispers, and wails. Can you hear him? The jack is boarding and he's come to let the field.
So you got an album coming out sometime later this year. Any more singles due out, or is that you concentrating on the album completely?
Yeah, I think we're gonna use the sort of remaining songs we've got and put out an album.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there'll be any more singles. To be honest, I mean, this day and age, what with, you know, the streaming platforms, it doesn't make a lot of difference whether you put out a single or an album. It costs a little bit more to, you know, set up an album. But for us, it's more about like just accumulating a body of work quickly. So we've already got like 4 out there, but like, if you put an album out, that's another 10 to 12 songs there straight away. So yeah, it's I think for us, it's like, you know, accumulating that body of work, which an album can do for us.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. What about videos? Have you doing videos for your music? Have you been able to do much in the way of that kind of?
Yeah, well, I hand you over to Steve. He's our video man. He's the 2 5 Points West of Hell and Neptune's Call. That was all Steve. So yeah, he's a video whiz.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose like the next kind of video will just be to promote maybe a song off the album or something like that. Yeah. As to what it will be, I think it just depends on the song and things. Yeah, I enjoy doing them. I kind of I do videos here as well for another project that I'm involved in Spain, and then it's just kind of, but yeah, I like doing them. It's kind of a way to do a short film and have the kind of, have the music, the soundtrack already there. Which is good.
So, I mean, will you be able to get all three of you in this video, do you think, or will it be?
Oh, possibly. I mean, I'm well up to going to visit, Andalusia and the mountains around Granada. So who knows? I mean,
excuse to come on.
Lucky enough to live in an absolutely beautiful part of Spain, so there's no shortage of like amazing landscapes and natural beauty.
Yeah.
And who would want our faces like polluting that, really? Oh,
come on, you can't say that. It's a matter
visit they film like the spaghetti westerns kind of quite near here as well. So
I was going to say there must be areas around there that were absolutely right for the spaghetti western.
Yeah, the two of the villages. A lot of the locations are still there. Two of the actual villages, they still use them for westerns. That's really interesting when you see them. It's really good.
Yeah.
I'd love to. I'm a huge fan of westerns and those spaghetti westerns. So I mean, I'd love to see them. And didn't you say, Steve, that one of the Indiana Jones scenes was shot there, around there as well?
Oh yeah, there's all sorts. Indiana Jones and Lawrence of Arabia and all sorts of films.
Oh, yeah, sounds good to me.
Oh yeah, there will be more videos as well. Obviously, during lockdown, like just getting out and about to actually get the shots was difficult because I think Steve's village was locked down for quite a while and no one had to leave. Obviously, continental travel was an impossibility, and it's still quite difficult and quite risky. But yeah, I mean, it would be great to have a video with all of us in it, even if it is just doing it like this, recording a Zoom and putting it in.
Let's get you the next video.
But technology is our friend, so see what we'll come up with.
Well, I look forward to hearing the album and hearing any more material from you and seeing your videos and that sort of thing. I hope at some point you might be able to get out and do some gigs. I'd quite like to come and see you play live, actually. I think that could be an experience.
That'd be nice. I would like it if we got the opportunity. Nice to do that.
I think we'd all like to. It's just overcoming the logistics of it at the moment.
Yeah. Obviously, it's very difficult. But as you say never. You never know. Things may change.
Yeah, of course. Things do have a habit of changing. So yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining me. It's been fantastic talking to you. And finally putting faces to the name, as it were, because as I say, I first heard like the last Steampunk Waltz basically when it first came out, and for ages after that I was thinking, these are a great band. I love this band, and saying to people, listen to them.
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, a bit of promotion going on there, yeah.
So there you go. Right, everybody who has been tuning in, thank you very much. I will put up, as I always do, links to social media and YouTube channels and video stuff and that sort of thing, and information about Ghostfire. And thank you very much, Steve and Andy, for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Shelter. Thank you.
And thanks to everybody for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.
Bye.
Talking Music with Big Andy.